Okay, so welcome to the Stygian Archive. I am Jay from the band IATT, and we have a special guest with us today, Chris Dufaut of the band Virulence. How's it going, Chris?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Pretty well, pretty well. It's a busy summer, busy summer.
Indeed.
Um, Chris, take us back to the beginning. Where did your personal relationship with heavy music start, and what made you want to pick up an instrument and play death metal?
Um, so for me personally, I started listening to heavier music in I don't know, before my teens. I remember listening to, um, you know, I first got into Cannibal Corpse like right at the age of like 13 and stuff like that. And right before that, the gateway of getting into that was I was raised in a house where I had a lot of things like Guns N' Roses and Van Halen and Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and all of those things. And that was around my life all the time. And, like anything natural, it everything keeps snowballing and getting bigger or faster and in case metal heavier and things like that. And as you discover bands and stuff like that, like I had heard of, bands growing up like, the Slipknots of the world and stuff like that. And I mean, that was fine for a short period but it wasn't really until like bands like Cannibal and Morbid Angel and stuff like that started popping up. And that was like in eighth grade, right at the age of 13. Um,
Sick.
when I started to like really gravitate to those things. Um, Funny enough, the first album from Cannibal that I really started getting into at the time because of the timeline was Gallery of Suicide. So, listening to songs like I Will Kill You and Blood Drenched Execution and From Skin to Liquid and stuff like that. Those are songs that still resonate. They may be the unpopular opinion for the band itself now because their discography is so iconic. But
Yeah.
at that moment, that's where I started. I mean, I'll never forget seeing that artwork for the first time and going, okay, this is something I got to take a look at. So,
Yeah.
um, playing guitar wise, there was not really a whole lot of musicians in my family. My grandmother like played the ukulele and stuff, and like that's
Mhm.
as far as it got. But my grandfather was a painter, and so we had artistic stuff from that standpoint a little bit. And my mom liked to draw and stuff like that. And my dad even attempted playing, saxophone for a small period, and it never worked out. But um, playing the guitar is something that I automatically gravitated to. Again, in that 12, 13 year type area of age. Yeah, I was like 12 or 13 years old when I started to play the guitar. I got like a Squire Stratocaster, my first go around and stuff like that. And got into like a Epiphone Les Paul Special Model 2 and things like that with two humbuckers. And that's when it got a little bit closer to, playing more metal stuff just because I had that humbucker sound and playing rock and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, and then that kind of just spiraled and, kept moving forward and things like that. But yeah, 13, with the age of 13 was an important one for me. That's where it really kind of made sense playing music and also the music that I'm listening to.
Fuck yeah, that's killer. Um, so what were some of the bands, what were some records that completely changed the way that you heard extreme metal? I know you mentioned Cannibal Corpse, but
Yeah.
are
Um,
there some albums that, really paved the way for you?
oh, for sure. So obviously I had mentioned Cannibal Corpse and Gallery of Suicide because that was like literally a first one. And same thing, Morbid Angel. The first Morbid Angel album I ever heard was Gateways to Annihilation. So again, something later because it was new at that time. I mean, I'm 40 years old. So, I mean, this is 1999, 2000 area,
Hmm.
when this is all. And so, um, yeah, those were two big albums for me just because it was just right at the start of it. The first album I ever heard from Death was Symbolic, and
Hmm.
that's a pretty special place to be because that album is so iconic and important. And don't get me wrong, like Leprosy and Scream Bloody Gore are absolute works of art and whatnot. But again, for the time frame and listening to Symbolic and individual thought patterns roughly around the same time and stuff like that. As I dug deeper into listening to death metal and things like that, there were certain albums that I gravitated towards that really made a difference to me. Vader's Litany was a big one for me. Um, yeah, Vader's just that's a very very special band. in my
Yeah.
heart. So not to go full Polish death metal, but like Decapited's Winds of Creation.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
those were two albums that specifically stuck out that were just like absolutely fucking mind blowing. Especially Decapitated because like they were almost a similar age to me.
Yeah.
So like that's actually where like the light bulb went off a little bit and was like, oh wait, if they can do that, I can do that. And that was a really really cool thing that really stuck out. Man, what are some other albums that really really stuck out? Probably, you know what, Dimmy Borgir's Puritanical Euphoric Misanthropia was the big one.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that album's. I mean, Kings of hearing like Kings of the Carnival Creation and Hybrid Stigmata and Puritania and Blessings Upon the Throne of Tyranny. All those songs, like it was just, and that was getting into the symphonic stuff of like getting into like, oh, what's this black metal thing, and then like that gets into listening to like a mysterious on Savannah's from Mayhem and
Yeah.
seeing what that whole world is. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I love those types of things as well. So I actually kind of did it backwards. I actually did thrash last. So the
Yeah.
the main the first thrash band I really truly loved and really got into, an album for them just to make it easier was Creator's Pleasure to Kill. Like
Okay. Yeah.
a lot of people start with like Metallica and Slayer and Megadeth and the Big Four and like all that stuff. Like literally for me, like I had heard some Metallica songs in the Black Album and stuff, but like the Black Album is not a thrash album.
No.
It just is what it is. So, but like the real thrash album was Pleasure to Kill, and then like I heard Extreme Aggression right after that, and that album is absolutely incredible. So yeah, I kind of did it backwards, dude. I was doing death metal and I was doing black metal right after that, and then I was getting into thrash after that. But yeah, Pleasure to Kill, Puritanical Euphoric Misanthropia, Gallery of Suicide, Gateways to Annihilation, Winds of Creation, Litany from Vader. Like there's just a couple of ones there, but those really stand out.
Yeah, and I can definitely hear some of that in your sound. So those influences have, translated, and I feel like that's the perfect gateway for someone that's coming from the death metal world, because that was a time frame where Demu started to experiment into the extreme metal genre and leaving, they still have their symphonic black metal roots, but
Sure.
they bring Galder in. You have that Old Man's Child, that black and death metal sound with like a lot of like the chuggy riffs and things like that. So that was definitely a good gateway for death metal fans as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny, the running joke that I have with buddies of mine when it comes up is Death Cult Armageddon is just a thrash album with keyboards and orchestra. It literally is. When you listen to like songs like Cataclysmic Children and stuff like that, it literally sounds like Slayer with Shigurth on vocals and with a whole orchestra behind him. It's
True.
just it's kind of
True.
funny when you listen to it. But I mean, dude, there's obviously a place for like, Enthroned Darkness Triumphant with like Morning Palace and Spellbound. And I actually, Spiritual Black Dimensions was very early for me too, listening to like Reptile and some of the songs that are on that album. But yeah, Puritanical was the one that like Nick Barker jumped on drums and changed all of it. Like,
Yeah, Nick Barker is such a underrated drummer, man, and like, that Old Man's Child influence, like,
oh my
is
God.
just so punishing.
I just went to MDF this past year and seeing Old Man's Child for the first time, that was like bucket list
Yeah,
type stuff. And that was an absolutely incredible performance seeing Old Man's Child play live. It was, yeah, that was a big one. That another album, if I had to throw another favorite album, and I know not to go backwards, but In Defiance of Existence from Old Man's Child is like really high on the list.
yeah, yeah.
That's really high on the list. Anyway, sorry about that.
No, you're fine, man. They're such a gem of a band. All right, so Florida, it has such a distinct sound and identity when it comes, with death metal. It's almost as if Florida has its own subgenre. What Florida bands, really influenced you personally, and what was it like, growing up as a musician with such like iconic bands from that area?
Um, we definitely have our pick of the litter. we say that Tampa is the, that's the capital of death metal is Tampa, Florida, and that's where Virulence is from. And we feel that we represent our community very, very well with our breed of Florida death metal that we bring upon it. Because it's very, very real. Florida death metal is its own thing.
Yeah.
But like iconic bands during the time frame, I mean, Deicide comes to mind real quick, um, very, very quick. Um, you know, Once Upon the Cross was the first Deicide album I got my hands on, so that was, to me, like going with Kill the Christian and all that stuff was a really good place to start. And Obituary is very, very close to my heart, and I'm very close with those guys. I love them to death. But listening to Cause of Death was huge, and that obviously Slowly We Rot and all of those. I already had mentioned Cannibal, and I know Cannibal's from Buffalo and all, but they're a
Hmm.
Florida death metal band, dude. Like,
Yeah.
oh,
Everyone thinks.
we can have that conversation all day long, and people love to argue about that. Yes, they started up in Buffalo, and we recognize that, but that is a Florida death metal band through and through. Um, Morbid Angel, kind of hit some of those already. It's just
Yeah.
funny because like when you think about iconic, Monstrosity was another big one too.
Hmm.
So, yeah, man, those are the Florida bands that kind of stick out for me. That really resonated, and there's some heavy hitters in our world of death metal. So, we Virulence tries to do them proud, and we're very, very happy to call friends, a lot of those bands friends and people who are close to us, and they like what we do, and we
Yeah.
appreciate that support. And we're trying to just be that next wave and next breed of Florida death metal that's going to stand out for people.
Yeah. Definitely. Are there any particular local venues, promoters, record stores, or shows that played an important role into your development as a musician?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different things. I mean, one of the first main venues that I ever played in was down in South Florida in Fort Lauderdale, called the Factory or the Metal Factory. They're no longer there, unfortunately, but that's one that I'll always have close to my heart. Also, Cafe Cristal in Miami,
Hmm.
because that's where my first band that I started was in like 2004, and that band was called Infernion, and that's kind of where those roots come from.
Yeah.
Um, so now with venues, um, I hold the Brass Mug and the Orpheum very, very close to my heart in Tampa. Those are
Oh,
two places that I love to play and have great relationships with their ownership. And there have been some killer bands that come through there. In the Orlando market, it's definitely Conduit. Conduit stands out to be definitely the venue that sticks out to me. When it comes to promoters, I'm a little biased just because um Elsie and I, Elsie's my partner in life. We run something called Vile Productions, which is bookings and stuff like that that we do on the side. That's side from my band, and I try to do my best for the most part. Like, I don't book my own band and our shows and stuff, so it's kind of funny. We end up booking all these killer shows with these amazing bands, and for the most part, Virulence doesn't play them. So,
yeah.
um, but so I'm a little biased there, but like, in Doxa booking with Pete Olin is absolutely phenomenal. Um, Nick Goodyear, based in the Tampa area, he plays with a couple different bands, including Paths of Possession and Promethean Horde. He books some killer stuff, including Swarmfest in Tampa. So that one sticks out for me. I'd also take a look at Anthony from Classic Steel Productions. He's based in the South Florida area, and Anthony does a phenomenal job and is a real straight up guy, and really love what he does. He brought us over into Melbourne for our first time, and yeah, that's those are definitely the folks that would stand out to me in venues for sure, that play a role in what has been great for our band so far.
Killer. Killer. So let's dive into Virulence. Tell us about the band coming together and what was the original vision of that project.
Sure. So Virulence started in November of 2020, so we were right in the middle of all of this bullshit with the pandemic, and there was a lot of unanswered questions, and people didn't know how it was going, what was happening. Are we taking vaccines, or is this all bullshit? And like, no one knew what the fuck was going on. You went through it. Everyone, we all know, and it is
Yeah.
what it is. So we're in a place where there's a lockdown that's happening. I had just moved back to Florida after a brief stint of living in Indiana, and got back to living in Florida, and it was my first time living in the Tampa area. And I was like, I want to go and check out a couple local shows as things just started to open up just a little bit because I moved back to Tampa in like late January of 2020. So literally 45 days after I moved back here, the whole world went to shit.
Yeah.
So, um, so wanting to check out a couple of local shows and see what, local bands there were. And I was like, you know what, man, I miss playing music. At that point, I hadn't been in a band for, I mean, at that point, it was like 11 years. I hadn't been in a band in a long time.
Hmm.
And so I got that itch because people were locked down for the most part, weren't going out a whole lot. Thankfully, dude, I had a great job at the time with an awesome company that we still had to go into the office and whatnot, but we never had a work stoppage. There was no furloughs. Like we were continuing to work and continue to do things. I used to work for Dean Guitars,
Oh,
so
nice.
um, they were great about that. Those guys are phenomenal. So I got that itch, man. I want to try and play music again. I decided to like grow my hair back out, and you know, I had
Yeah.
I had shaved my head for God knows how long and all that stuff. And so when I moved back to Florida into the Tampa area, my old buddy Kevin, I knew was living in the St. Pete area. Kevin was the original bass player in my old band Infernion that I've already talked about, and that was a long time ago. So at that point, we had been friends for almost 20 years. And I just reached out to him. I was like, "Hey, man, I moved back into town relatively recently, and just want to see what you're up to, and just to hang out and grab a bite or whatever." And just the obvious things come up. Hey, are you playing music? And he's like, "No, I'm not, but I'm messing around with some ideas with my friend Steve." And I was like, "Okay, that's cool." And he's like, "You probably like Steve, and you should meet him and see what that's about." Funny enough, Steve was the guitar player in Fernion after me.
Oh,
So
nice.
he was in the same band that I was in, but we were never in that band at the same time. He was in
Okay.
that band with Kevin.
Yeah.
So we got together and just started jamming some ideas. And like literally the first time we jammed out, we ended up mapping out like what would be one of the songs that's on our debut EP. So
Nice.
um, you know, the next question obvious was, who's going to play drums? And like I had mentioned, I was working for Dean Guitars, which is part of a company called Armadillo Enterprises, which also has D drum within it. And the guy who runs D drum is a guy named Mike Petrak. He's a phenomenal drummer, an even better guy. And we worked together. And so he wasn't playing in a band at the time either. And I was like, "Hey, dude, we should just jam." He's like, "Yeah, sure. What the fuck? Why not?" And that's what Virulence ended up becoming. Was It was us as a four piece with myself, Kevin, Steve, and Mike, and we wanted to write apocalyptic style death metal that's all about viruses fucking people up and killing people because we were literally living in the pandemic.
Yeah.
And from that standpoint, oh, and the word virulence is all about the potency of a virus. That's literally what that word is. So you know it all kind of mapped out and worked, made sense all together. So that's kind of where that came from.
Yeah, that's a real epic start, and it's definitely a realistic view on things. It's not really fantasy death metal because you guys lived through it and through that time frame. So
I mean, don't get me wrong, dude. We kind of we're talking about the undead, become coming back together and like because of this virus reanimating dead flesh and like getting into we have fun with it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And
I just mean
um,
by like the start of the band, you
yeah,
know.
of course, exactly. We were like, yeah, dude, we're gonna talk about viruses killing people. Like, hey, that's exactly what's happening in the world. So fuck it, why not? So kind of worked out.
Yeah, that's killer, man. Um, so when you're writing for Virulence, what where do the riffs come from? Is it like the atmosphere that you guys set? Is it the lyrical concepts, or what
Lyrical
is?
concepts come, yeah, lyrical concepts come afterwards. The music comes first, at least for me. So like I write all the lyrics for our band, and we we all have our ideas of like different riffs, and we like to jam stuff out and like, hey, here's a riff. How does this work with? And so Mike will throw down some drums, or maybe I'll write some riffs and I'll come up with my own BS drums with it, and then he can kind of run with it how he wants to. And um, Vince, who's our current guitar player with me, he'll come to the band with some ideas of his own. And then Kevin does the same thing. So it's not a thing where like full full songs typically are not written ahead of time. I'm
Hmm.
not gonna lie, there's a couple songs on the new album that are kind of like that, where I had a vision of what I wanted for that song specifically, or Vince had a vision of what he wanted, and then we would kind of work through those things together, like percussion wise, and Mike would decide what he wants to do
Hmm.
and stuff like that. Um, so as we're writing music, I think in my head of like what vocal patterns would I want, because I do a lot of like highs and then I also do lows, and there's I do all of them. So there's I'll think about a spot as like, okay, here's I would want to have like a high style vocal where I'm doing like my best Shagras from Dimmu impression, and then like
Hmm.
I'll do low vocals over here where my Glenn Benton comes out, or like whatever that looks like. So after we map out the song and I have an idea of where I want to put vocals, I'll sit there with it and just play and think, how many syllables does this need to be? And, just work through lyrical content. And I decide all the lyrics on myself and what the premises are going to be about, what's the story about, and all that kind of stuff, and kind of just work through it from there.
Killer, killer. Yeah. How do you balance honoring old school death metal and some of your other influences with, creating your own sound and as an entity?
That's a really good question. Um, I play music I like, and I
Okay.
play music I'm proud of. I'm not here to do it for anybody else but myself, and to say, you know what, that's an album. 20 years from now, dude, I want to be able to listen to Necrosis and be like, that's something I did with my brothers, and that's something I'm still proud of, and I love how that thing sounds. And I'm never going to be caught in a position where I'm playing with a band where it's like, I wasn't quite fucking with that, and I'm not into that. And, but
Hmm.
I just did it just to do it. I'm not playing that game. I tried that before when I joined, I'm not even gonna go in there. So been there, done that. It is what it is. So I take a lot of influence from a lot of those places. I have a very, very special place in my heart for brutal death metal. And then I get into stuff that's more like technical death metal. Then I get into a lot of black metal stuff here, and then there's some thrash. Virulence really is like a mishmash of a lot of those things. Like when you listen to the Necrosis record, like there's a lot of things that are there, like the song Necrosis. You
Hmm.
know, our running joke in rehearsal is like, all right, let's play Necrosis. Let's run back to the forests of Norway. Like we say that almost every time, and just like it has a very black metal style type vibe to it. And then
Hmm.
you listen to a song like Behold the Bloodshed, and Behold the Bloodshed is very more technical style death metal with, it is what it is. So thankfully that song's gotten some play on Liquid Metal on Sirius XM radio and stuff like that. And I'm very thankful for that. And I'm glad people are into it and like it. So, um, it's, this band is just a mishmash of all the stuff that I like. And other guys will come with music that they've written, and if it sounds like things that we all like, then we figure out how to make it work. There's not anything, dude. Hell, if somebody came to the table and was like, hey, here's this polka thing and this thing sounds fucking killer, and they play this thing and it sounds like something all four of us like, you can guarantee you'd find some polka shit in our stuff. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. Just
Yeah.
a stupid example. But if it sounds good to us and it's something that we feel represents Florida death metal, well, we're going to push forward with it and push to the limits, because we don't like being boxed in, dude. That's why we break out of the box.
Yeah. I can definitely appreciate that. Um, so you did mention a new album, or
Hmm.
you mentioned an album, and I noticed you guys released an EP and then you released a single, Epidemic Unleashed.
Hmm.
Um, is there a new album in the works?
Yes. So the new album is entitled Epidemic Unleashed. It's coming. we wanted to do things in small steps with a single and stuff like that. Um, I think once it's probably going to be early next year is when you're going to see it finished, probably Q1 of next year. So anytime between January to March. I don't have a hard date as of yet. Um, we do have a new single that's going to be coming probably in the next week or two. So
Oh, sick.
um, the song for that is called Cremation in Containment.
Okay.
Like I said, it's going to be about a week or two. I don't know when this is going to be streamed, but yeah, as of this moment of this interview, about a week or two from now. So,
So you're hearing it here first. I don't think you guys announced that yet.
nope.
Wow, exclusive. All right. So I know the band started somewhere, in the 2020s, early 2020, right? So
Late 2020, yeah.
late 2020. So looking back at the journey so far, is there a particular song, release, or show that felt like a turning point for the band?
Turning point, a song that did that. Man, that's hard to say. So, I mean, I'll answer that my best by saying we're fortunate that we've been able to play with some iconic bands in the state, and we're glad that promoters can come to us and have confidence. They know that they can reach out to Virulence and that we're going to step up and do a great job to support touring packages and bands that are coming in town and stuff like that. And that's forged, the relationships with bands themselves and stuff like that. Probably the thing that sticks out to me most is that we've been in regular rotation with Obituary, where we open up Obituary shows. To date, I think we've opened 3 Obituary shows at this point.
Okay.
And yeah, the Tardy brothers are the best, dude. They're such amazing guys, and they've done right by us, and they like what we do. And so, we opened 2 shows for them in Tampa and one up in Gainesville. So,
Nice.
if I would say the show wise, where I think it makes a big difference for us is having the opportunity to work with Obituary, and they like our stuff enough to where they feel like we represent them well, and with that we can open up their shows and do the right thing by them. um Song wise, um probably Behold the Bloodshed is the one that sticks out to me. That was the song that um I wrote that song, and it was really really stuck out as something that was different and special, and it showed some of our more melodic things where I like tried to pull like some of my inner Vital Remains out and getting into that stuff. And um my old band went on tour opening for Vital Remains for like 3 or 4 weeks or so. I don't remember how long it was. It was like 2009. And so we got to listen to Vital Remains every single night when we would open for them. And so Tony and those guys were great. And I've always had a really soft place in my heart for Dave Suzuki and what he did on Dechristianize and Icons of Evil and all that stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, Dawn of the Apocalypse and Forever Underground are great, but we all know
Yeah.
the 2 albums that stick out to people.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that song kind of has some of that melodicness and simplicity, but then there's also some real technical stuff that happens with it. And it's like the perfect marriage of what I would want. So I love how that song came out, and I'm very, very proud of it. And the new album has a lot of what Behold the Bloodshed does. So I'm really excited for people to hear it when it comes out.
Yeah. I mean, some legendary bands that you guys have played with, and that definitely sets the stage as far as professionalism and how you guys carry yourselves and things like that. So you guys are just coming off the Tropical Pathogenesis run. Am
Yep.
I correct?
Yep.
Was there any like memorable moments, any stories, or
The whole
anything you
thing was
guys?
memorable. The whole thing fucking kicked ass, man. Like we call it the Tropical Pathogenesis tour, but dude, let's face it, it's 3 shows. Like
Yeah.
it's not a big deal. But yeah, it was a run of 3 shows. We had an absolute fucking blast. Where Malignancy came down, and I'm fortunate enough where I also play live bass with Malignancy, and so I was on double duty for each of those nights. And I love Danny and Ron. They're some of my favorite people on planet Earth, and I appreciate them giving me the opportunity to play bass with them when the right opportunity comes, um, when they need me. So I'm there for when it's needed. And don't I cannot forget Nikhil. Nikhil is one of my favorite people on planet Earth. He's such an amazing talent of a drummer, and also a guitar player because he is the one man show behind Anal Stab Wound, which was part of the Tropical Pathogenesis tour.
Yeah.
Holy fuck, if you have not listened to Anal Stab Wound, those guys are the future of brutal death metal. And you need to take note. It's
Hell yeah.
fucking crazy what that band does. And then we had Mystery Meat come from Houston, and those guys just do porno gore grind to the letter. So we, that was the cool thing about Tropical Pathogenesis is that we had all these four bands that all were very different from each other. You know,
Hmm.
Virulence opened it up as Virulence is more of an old school technical death metal band, and then you get into like the gore porno grind that Mystery Meat does. Then you get into like you know technical brutal death metal that Anal Stab Wound does, and then the obviously the fucking kings that Malignancy is. Those guys are the best. So it was a nice variety of stuff where people who are coming out they can enjoy a little bit of everything. I mean, unless somebody ends up coming to the show that only likes Burzum, which I don't think is going to happen, but
Yeah.
there wouldn't be much for those guys. But um, yeah, it worked out well. We had a blast. We had a big Sprinter van that we rented, and we were all driving in the Sprinter van for the most part, with the exception of Mystery Meat. And we just made our runs and hung out, and you know, made a lot of fucking memories, dude. It was one of my favorite runs of shows that I've ever done.
Hell yeah. Yeah. That's a killer tour or killer run. It is
Killer
what it
run,
is.
yeah, man. I hate to call it a tour. It's like, yeah, man, 3 days. Watch this, But no, it was a great run of shows, and I couldn't have done it without all those guys and without LC, with Vile Productions being behind it. It was absolutely phenomenal.
Maybe you guys later down the road you'll take that tour and bring it in other places because
Yeah,
I would love
that's
to go. Yeah,
yeah. I don't know where are you based out of?
I'm based out of like the Philadelphia area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So, yeah, man, I would love that. That's up to Danny and Ron. That's not up to me. So
yeah.
that's where we got to make sure that, that works for them. But hey, I'll put the bug in their ear. That's fine.
Hell yeah. So let's shift gears and let's talk about some gear. What's your current guitar and bass setup for Virulence and when you play with Malignancy?
Yeah, sure. So in Virulence, I play with a Jackson Soloist SL2H, Japanese soloist electric guitar, with Seymour Duncan pickups, Godo floating bridge, and I absolutely love that guitar. That is a recent acquisition that I've gotten only like in the last 6 to 8 months, and it replaced. I was playing a USA Custom Dean for a long time, and I'm at a place where I don't want to bring that guitar out of the house too often. So
Hmm.
I decided to shift over to Jackson. Jackson is a company that I have a ton of respect for, and they make incredible products. And so that Soloist is one of my favorite guitars that I've ever played. It's neck through and um, compound radius, and it's just the thing plays like absolute butter. I love that guitar. Um, for an amp rig, I play with a Randall Thrasher 120 on top of a Randall RX 412 with Celestion speakers inside of it. So um, but on the board, I also run a Neural DSP Quad Cortex.
Okay.
And when I intermingle those things where I get all the benefits of like the power section and the warmth of the tubes from the Randall Thrasher 120, then I can run it into the quad. It's like the perfect marriage of tone. And I couldn't be happier with it. It sounds fucking killer. And it's easy to just like, here, run it, you go, and you're good to go.
Sick. So
Um,
you kind of blend the digital and the analog world
yep.
and then the tubes together. So
Yep. It sounds fucking great. And in Malignancy, I play um well for the shows as of late, I kind of just play whatever amp is at the venue. I mean, here at the studio, I use an Ampeg SVT3 Pro and an Ampeg 810 cabinet. But nobody feels like lugging around the 810 fridge if they don't have to. Um, but for my Go pedal board, for
mhm.
my fly rig for bass, I run a Dark Glass Alpha Omega preamp,
Okay.
um, which sounds really, really great. An Iridium Effects Spirit Crusher compressor.
Hmm.
and a Boss TU3 Wazacraft tuner going into a Gator power supply, which is switchable. So whether I'm playing in the US or in Europe, I can just switch it and be on the go. So
Sick.
simple board. It's only like 17-inch board, pretty small. Does everything that I needed to do. And it was perfect for fly dates when I did my fly date with Malignancy to the UK. Or if
Hmm.
I'm doing anything here, it does everything I need. Oh,
So,
the bass. So I also play a Dean 5 string Edge 5 bass
okay,
on
sick.
those things with the MG pickups. Sorry about that.
Nice. So what was it like? You mentioned you worked for Dean Guitars. Or what was it like working for Dean Guitars? Or do you currently
Um,
work for them now?
no, I do not. I do not
Okay.
work for, I work for a different company in the musical instruments industry. Working for Dean, I have no complaints. Great people over there. Being in the USA custom shop whenever I wanted to be was a very cool thing. And they have a lot of incredible people still working there, and they should take notice because the USA made guitars in that facility are some of the best made guitars in the US and are like the world's best kept secret. People should play more of those Dean USA guitars.
Yeah.
Um, I currently work for Gator Cases,
Okay.
um, working as a product manager for them. And anything that has to do with strings with Gator Cases is kind of in my purview. So anything that has to do with cases, accessories or stands, power supplies, pedal boards, any of those things, I manage all the product and come up with concepts of product and invent all those things with my industrial design team. So
Nice. Nice.
um, so it's awesome to be in a band and play extreme music, but also be in the MI industry. I've been in the MI industry for 22 years at this point. So um, I'm blessed to be able to do that and have it intermingle with the thing that I'm passionate about, which is playing fucking death metal music and be able to have those things intertwine. So
Yeah, and for the gearheads out there and for me personally, is there anything that I may not be aware of as far as like power supplies with all the big demand of, the digital rigs and things like that? Are there any power supplies that you guys may be working on or any new power supplies that you guys are coming up with?
uh, yes, yes, there is.
Okay.
Can't get into details.
Okay. All
Um,
right. We'll
but
keep our eyes open.
I have, you know, there's some phenomenal stuff that I'm very proud of on the Gator side of things, that will be available to musicians that they can get and will solve a lot of problems in the world of power and other things.
Awesome. That's cool to hear. And we're long in the tooth with this interview, but I just wanted to touch on the Hurricane Milton experience. I did see that you guys put a post up there, and I just want to ask, like, how did Hurricane Milton have a major impact on the communities across Florida and the music community?
I
That
mean, I can only speak for us. It flooded our rehearsal space. So,
yeah.
um, so that was the big one. So we had our rehearsal space in Tampa. Um, it's this small warehouse district where there was like only three bands working in there. Um, Cannibal Corpse was to our right. We were in the middle, and Nasty Savage was to our left. And all of our rehearsal spaces were completely flooded out. So all of us felt it. Nasty Savage felt it. Cannibal felt it. We did. We got all of our stuff out of there. We, as a band, made the choice to relocate all of our, being where we're going to rehearse and where we're going to record, because we were doing all of those things in there, into my home, into my garage, and completely converted the garage into a acoustically treated, finished area, so that we can properly do all the things that we need to do to not only rehearse but record our album. And then we'll track everything here and with all the drums and strings and vocals and all that, and then we send it off to get mixed and mastered by somebody else. But Milton was a real motherfucker, dude. It's just it was a real pain in the ass because here we are with our, most of our gear flooded out, and we had to figure it out. We ended up doing a video and a GoFundMe, and the community for, I mean, dude, let's face it, we're not like a big band. We know where we stand, and the metal community really came together and like donated a bunch of money to us to be able to help us recuperate some gear. And I think we raised just over $1,800 in a GoFundMe, which, I mean, that's amazing for so many people who didn't even know who we were. And that helped pay to get some of the gear that we needed back,
Yeah.
to be able to, because we lost, unfortunately, we lost more than that. But um, you know, the fact that anybody would come to us and help us with something like that just shows how big of a heart that the metal community has and how misunderstood we are.
Yeah.
And so that meant a lot. So yeah, Hurricane Milton's a motherfucker. It left me without power for like 3 or 4 days, and it sucked. Um, and so we got through it and did all the things that we need to, and it's just part of living in Florida, baby. It's just part
Yeah.
of the dealing with it. So
Yeah. That's tremendous that you were able to get support from, the metal scene. Yeah. That speaks volumes.
absolutely.
Yeah. If you could put together an ultimate death metal tour with any bands from the past or present, who would be on that bill?
Oh my god, dude, that's not even fucking fair. Um, how could you? I mean, like, Jesus Christ. I might plead the fifth on this one, bro. Um, see, like, most people would be like, I'm just gonna get four of the biggest bands that I love. And like me in the world of like, because I do bookings with Elsie, that like we think in the world of like when we're booking a show, there's a headliner, then there's one that supports them, and like we actually think of like tiers of bands and like what that looks like. Because how many people would be like, hey, look, I'm just gonna go and make this absolutely massive tour and we're gonna do Cannibal Corpse and Deicide and Obituary and Death. There you go. That's what we have. And it's like, no, dude, because that would never happen. It
That
just
that's a lot of like, and I don't mean to say that anyone has egos, but that's a lot of egos to
it's a
like.
lot.
How do you
Dude,
balance that? So as someone with booking experience, you would have to do like,
oh my God.
your favorite headliner, your favorite sub headliner,
I
then
get that. I feel you, bro. Oh my God. This is really, really difficult. I'm just gonna say four bands that I think would complement each other, and then we can figure out orders and stuff of that. Unmerciful is one of my favorite bands
yeah,
that's
they're
out there.
sick. They're sick.
Unmercifully Beaten is a fucking anthem of an album, and I absolutely love Unmerciful in that album. And you know, whether Shotgun Sodomy and like, oh, it's so that album's, dude, it's literally perfection. I mean, I'd put Unmerciful on something like that. Um, we got to say Ripping Corpse, right? Like
Hell
real
yeah.
old school Ripping Corpse.
Yeah.
Like that sticks out to me. That we would have something like Ripping Corpse come out to fucking start swinging and doing their thing. I mean, because that unfortunately will never happen. Um, fucking Deeds of Flesh, dude. Deeds of Flesh comes up to me. Do some Trading Pieces or Path of the Awakening and stuff like that all day long.
Yeah.
Um, Reduced to Ashes, same thing. That album was so iconic. Um, oh God, dude, you're putting me on the spot hard.
One last band.
Oh my God, dude. I let's do some fucking throw fucking Hypocrisy on there. That would be sick as fuck.
Hypocrisy. Yeah.
Yeah,
They can
to
make
like
up
round that thing out and do something weird with it.
yeah, they can make up for their visa issues that they were having.
Yeah, I mean, if visa issues are not even in the cards and stuff like that,
Yeah.
then I don't need to worry about any of those things. Yeah, those are just some bands that stick out to me that you know what, as a wild card, I would throw Lust of Decay on there with Infesting the Exhumed being like such an incredible album as well. I've been trying to get in Steve's ear to have Lust come down to Florida and stuff, but I've struck out so far. I love that band and I love that dude. Um, but yeah, that's what I'll go with, dude. That's just right off the top of my head. You caught me off guard of some bands that stand out. So
All right. So, one or two last questions.
yeah,
Finally, when people walk away from a Virulence show, what do you want them to feel?
I want to go see that band again.
Okay.
That's the first
Short.
thing that pops up.
Yeah.
Um, Holy fuck, what did I just see?
Hell yeah.
I want that to be a reaction that, because we've been fortunate enough. We get off stage and I'm fucking sweating and getting my gear broken down, and I run over to watch the merch table and stuff like that. And we've been people have come over and are so kind and say like, dude, what do we just see? Where have you guys been in the Florida scene forever?
Hmm.
Um, where have you guys been? Like, because there are bands that are thrown around that just people say that other bands are just not doing what we do, and I appreciate the compliment. I don't know how true it is, but um, I want people to see it and go, I just saw a lot of technical death metal. I also just saw a bunch of fucking badass thrash. I even heard some black metal in there. Where did all of this come from?
Yeah.
Where go out there and do the right thing and support your bands, and yeah, the first thing I would want somebody to go is I really want to go see that band again. Where can we go see them? That shows that I did what I needed, because I know I'm making music that I love,
Hmm.
but that means I also made music that somebody else, it really resonated with them and they want to see us again. So that means I really did what I was supposed to.
Yeah. And that's really important. Um, are there any like final thoughts? Anything you want to share with any of your fans, or anyone that's watching this episode? Also, where can they find your music or support you guys the
Sure.
best?
I'm so thankful for the fans that have already reached out and are following us. Definitely do us the solid, and bands that you love, even if they're small, and go support their social channels, whether Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and those things. Go and give them a follow and stay engaged with content and just get to know them and see what it is that they've got going on. Because that's the best way that you know what we have happening or what other bands have going on. Support bands by buying their merch. That is the best way that you can support a band, by supporting them directly by buying merch, but then also you have a cool badass shirt or whatever it is that you get that you represent a band that you really really like. um I mean, to say that Virulence has fans all over the world, it's crazy, and that's awesome, because like we'll see the little reports on Spotify. It's like, oh, your most listeners that you have this week is in Norway, and I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, what, seriously? That's cool. Yeah, I just had it pop up in Bandcamp, where somebody decided to buy a CD and they paid for all the shipping to have us ship it to Norway.
Wow.
Okay, sure, no problem. So like international stuff doesn't happen too often. It happens like once a month or so, but mostly the stuff for outgoing shipping for Bandcamp is all domestic, in the US. But Bandcamp is a good place to go, where you can not only listen to our music, but you can buy merch there directly, especially Bandcamp Friday, because all the proceeds go directly to the band. And it's not about money. We don't do this for money. Like, this is a passion project. But at the end of the day, money is what helps us keep this thing moving forward. So, like, if somebody wants to truly support a band, jump on Bandcamp, buy their merch, follow their socials, see what they and stay engaged with their socials. It really makes a big, big difference. And you're going to see some more from us getting involved into social media and doing some different types of content and experimenting and stuff like that, and trying to do some different things. So
Awesome. All right, guys, you've heard it from Chris. I want to thank you again, Chris, for sitting down with the Stygian Archive.
yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate it.